Hello everyone. On behalf of Smart State India, I thank you all and welcome you to today's session on Data is Digital Gold. So my name is Rahul Shah and I am the Managing Editor at Smart State India, which is a technology media platform with a specific focus on technology solutions that can help businesses to become better and smart. In today's webinar, our focus is on data. And you know how data has become digital gold today for every businesses. Be it industrial designs, financial sheet, employee, or customer records. All this data is valuable to your business. Can you imagine if this data is lost, will you be able to chart out your growth strategy or make any marketing initiatives? I guess no. So that's why data is digital gold. And data too, like real gold, needs to be protected. Today with us, we have a seasoned technology stalwart, an innovator of patented technologies, an ardent traveler, a writer, a serial entrepreneur, and an investor who will be sharing his insights on how best practices to be followed for keeping the digital gold safe. But prior to that, can we just do a quick check on the audience profile set through a poll? Prasanna, can you just initiate the poll? And I'll request our audience to just respond to on the poll. It is just for gauging where are the audience set is. So almost 40% of the participants has given their inputs. And I guess almost 40% of our audience is from IT professionals, and about 20% are the real owners or from the SMEs. And then we have about 15% from system integrators and solution providers. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to the go-to guy for the MSMEs, Mr. Vishal Shah, CEO and co-founder of Sinners of Technologies. Hello, Mr. Shah. The stage is all yours.
How are you doing? Good afternoon, all. In Gujarat, in our northwest part, it is known as a siesta time. 2:30 is a siesta time. So I'm happy a lot of people have joined in this siesta time, and let's try to make it worthy of their time. Yeah, Rahul. So, shall we start?
Yes, sir. So as I mentioned, we almost 40% of our audience today is from IT professional background, and most of them are also from the SME sector. So, so to initiate, we know about today's topic, and from your perspective, we want to know why data is an important asset and why do we need to keep it secured.
Yeah, so basically, we all know that data is an asset. Everybody is realizing either by gaining knowledge from experts, or maybe by suffering from any event or disaster happening in the organization, which might have halted the business continuity. At the same time, let us first understand why we compare data in gold terms. Why we consider data as gold. Just a moment. I have some issue. Sorry, I just changed my internet. Yeah, so why we want to compare data as in gold terms? Why do we want to protect it? So let us understand it with a different perspective. So anything which is precious, has something in it. And what is in it? Why we consider data as a gold? So in my opinion, cost of creating the data again is immense, is enormous. Data has a lot of man hours for years. Data has in it software derived MIS reports the organization uses and makes very, very important and crucial decisions. Data also has a lot of intellectual inputs by experienced people, by external consultants, by by a lot of strategic alliances also. And data is also having a lot of collaborative elements inside. When, let's say, there is a design which is created, and then it is digital drawing of a design, but that design has a lot of man hours. It has a lot of intellectual inputs. It has a lot of collaborative efforts by the users. So cost of recreation is one element why I would compare data with gold, which is enormous, and that's why it has enormous value. Another thing is, if something, whether something is precious or something is not precious, how do we decide? When we want to decide that, we have to understand whether there would be any consequences, or there would be any damage, or there would be any losses if that particular thing is stolen. So data means your customer data. It could be an insurance company which has millions of its customers as their data. Data could be your tender bids. Any business enterprise which is supplying to government might be, using tender bids. Data could be your designs, drawings, documents. It could be your operations data, where you source your material from, what technology you use, what are your operational efficiencies. It would be business information also. What is your strategic focus? How your management thinks. A lot of business information is also there in the data. It has its own cost sheets. It has its own payroll. So all this is nothing but data. A lot of R&D and technology is there in data. Professional advisory, report, analytics also are in form of data. If this particular type of data is stolen or leaked, it can be misused for competitive exploitation, and it can result in enormous loss to the organization whose data is being leaked or stolen. So another logic of considering data as gold is cost of competitive exploitation. If competitive exploitation happens on that data, organization faces a lot of damages. And the third most important thing why data is so precious, many a times, if our digital data is not protected well, the organization might be defaulter to some non-disclosure agreement it might have signed with its customers, or it might be defaulting to some statutory compliances, or it would be defaulting on some privacy protection obligations. What do we mean by NDA bound information? Basically, let's say, for example, an industry is an auto component manufacturing industry and it is supplying to German or Japanese or Korean automobile giants. Now, when these giants deal with their vendors, they ask them to sign non-disclosure agreement of whatever is exchanged between them in terms of technology, in terms of communication. If the receiving organization of that particular information is not able to protect that technology or data from theft or leakage, it is basically defaulting on non-disclosure agreement it might have signed. Statutory compliances like banks, it has almost every detail of its customers. It has signed specimen, it has Aadhaar card, it has a lot of details, Now, government wants that certain data has to be stored for 7 years, 8 years, for income tax purpose, for GST purpose. So all these statutory compliances, are also imposed on the organizations. And if organization is not able to comply with them, there would be very, very serious penalties. Privacy protection obligation, we are on the verge of getting our privacy protection law, and that will make everyone custodian of the data. So now it could be bank, it could be a share broker, it could be an insurance company. They have a lot of personal data of their customers, and now they will be, after the privacy protection law is passed, they will be legally required to protect that data from leakage. And if they are unable to do it, they will have to face the liabilities against any privacy protection obligations they could not honor. So Rahul, this is my take on why data is why we consider data as a digital, gold. And before we move to next slide, I will request Prasanna to, run the poll. We would like to know how audience is reflecting to my opinions. Yeah, Prasanna.
So I would request the audience to do the fastest finger first, and let's see. Right. So I guess 95% of our audiences have responded, and majorly for them, their data is their intellectual inputs, followed by the collaborative work and the MIS reports that are generated in the company, and the years of man hours that they have given in the organization. In the same vein, they have said about what is confidential to them. It's the design or the drawing or the operational data, and the customer data is the most important thing for any organization. 61% of our audience says so. And are they legally bound? So for that, most of them are bound by the statutory compliance as more than 50%. So Vishal sir, now we understand what are the people are saying for the data and the breakup amongst why what is important for them and how they are bound or why they are keeping it confidential and why how is it valuable to them. So indeed, data is digital gold for the businesses today. And just like real gold, it needs to be kept safe in a vault. But that is not a cakewalk for any of the businesses because it needs so much of solutions or technology solutions and above that investment to be put on. So what are the challenges that businesses face while protecting their data?
Yeah, so Rahul, this is a very good question. Everybody talks about protecting the data and how to protect the data. We need to first understand the major cause, or challenge, while we want to strategize something to protect the data. So I would like to give a kind of, a very layman example to all our attendees. And that layman example is, let's imagine that there is a room on the floor. There are a lot of marbles, precious marbles scattered across the floor. I understand that everyone would agree to that, that it will be very difficult to protect those marbles from loss or theft. But at the same time, if we place all those marbles in a jar, lock it properly, and put it in one corner of the room, everyone would agree that it would be very easy to basically protect those marbles from loss or theft. So this is what I want to drive, that scatteredness of data. Nowadays, we use a lot of devices. We use tablets, mobile phones, desktops, laptops. Scatteredness of data is the biggest challenge when you want to strategize protection of data. If we can overcome the scatteredness of the data, it would be really an easy job to protect it from loss or theft. So our precious asset, we cannot afford to have it. We cannot afford to have it on so scattered on multiple devices. Now, let me give you an example. There is another challenge, and that challenge is very democratic of its kind. Let me give you an example. Let's say we all go to office or work, and we drive ourselves, or maybe we are driven by our driver. This particular image shows you the very common perspective of the Indian roads. The meaning of the red signal is different, and it depends on whether police is around or cameras are installed. If police is not around or cameras are not installed, people jump the signal. And if they are there in place, then red signal means stop. So it is very democratic. You cannot control individual users or individual consumers' behavior. I will touch upon this point why scatteredness is very serious challenge, and how this element of democracy versions it. I'm trying to create slight mystery on that. So if we compare these marbles with our data, it could be our files, it could be our emails, whatever. And if it is scattered at so many places, it is very, very difficult to protect it from loss or theft. So normally, organizations, what do? They put a central storage, either on cloud or as a file server on premise or as a NAS device on premise. And then they instruct every user to save the data on that central location. And now I would like to relate this phenomenon with this traffic signal phenomenon. When we instruct someone to do something and leave a choice on that someone, there are all chances that our instructions may not be followed. Just like on traffic, we all know red signal means stop, but many people don't. Similarly, when we ask people to save the data on central location. It could be central cloud storage, or it could be central file server or NAS device on premise. Not all the users would be following those instructions very, very precisely. Many other users, many users would be ignorant, many users would be negligent, and they still continue to scatter the data. They still continue to scatter the data. So this is the biggest challenge when we want to protect the data. When we want to protect the data, it is the biggest challenge. And when our data is scattered, it leads to duplication of data. It leads to scatteredness, so difficulty of protecting that data from loss and theft, and it leads to low confidence backup. When you have a lot of devices to back up because your data is scattered and you want to back up every element of data on those devices, it is very difficult backup strategy, and it is always low confidence backup. So I would, Rahul, say that the major challenge against protecting the data is scatteredness and the choice with the user to scatter the data.
Right, sir. And thank you for explaining so lucidly about data scatteredness. Now we have understood that data scatteredness is a primary challenge that organizations face when they proceed for data protection. But can you give us some best practices or talk about some or share some insights on some practical solutions how businesses can minimize their data scatteredness?
Sure, we can always think about it. So as I explained, that data scatteredness and choice of the users to scatter the data are the biggest challenges against any data protection strategy. Similarly, we need to understand how we can minimize this scatteredness. So IT industry has a lot of solutions to offer, and we will discuss those solutions also, and we will demonstrate one of them also today. So let us focus first on minimizing the scatteredness of data and nullifying the user's choice to scatter the data. So the first solution, which is age-old solution, evergreen solution, which is diskless device and terminal server. There is no storage on the device which user uses. User has to use the terminal server through remote desktop or any such services, Citrix, and the data will always be centralized. This is how scatteredness will be minimized, and users' choice to scatter the data will be nullified. But here, these solutions were good enough when we only had computers or desktops or laptops to be used. But now users are using tablets, now users are using mobile phones. Users are working remotely, users are working from home. So this solution has slightly lost its relevance. Number one, it is mostly based on thin clients. Two, it does not really support very well the remote work culture, which is basically witnessed by the world after the COVID. And third would be the cost. A lot of cost incurred on terminal server license, client access license, RDP client access license. So that is something which is slightly expensive on cost side. Another would be Active Directory and file server. In Active Directory also, you can take away the choice from the user where he is going to save the data. You have to put a domain controller, Active Directory. You have to put file services or a file server or a NAS device on which user will be forced to save the data. Again, it does not take care of remote workforce very well, because remote workforce still can scatter the data because they might be out of the purview of domain controller. Similarly, file servers may be on cloud, maybe on premise, but again, it has to be protected. So on the security perspective, as well as on the cost perspective. This is also requiring server license for domain controller, CRAL licenses, VPN client licenses, file server license, everything it requires. So this is also slightly expensive on the cost side. Since I can see most of the attendees are MSMEs, I would say that device hardening and storage solution would be a great solution on the cost effective side, as well as on the fit to purpose perspective. So when we talk about device hardening, you have many products in the market which are known as device hardening products. They are small software, very light software. They are installed on the user's computers, and then they control the storage actions or storage activities of the users. And if they are configured as the users cannot save data on the local storage, or users have to save data somewhere else on the central location, they will make sure that it is mandated. And that is how device hardening solutions are very cost effective. They are light, they are not very hardware or capital intensive, and it can very effectively minimize the scatteredness, and it can very effectively nullify users' choice to scatter the data. So I would not like to keep everyone guessing about it. So we have installed one such device hardening agent on one of our desktop and one of our laptops, and we will demonstrate it. So I request our technical team to connect to a desktop which is installed with such an agent, and we would like to demonstrate how device hardening happens and how forced centralization or data scatteredness minimization can happen. So now we will be connecting to a desktop which is installed with such a device hardening agent. Then we will also connect to a laptop which is supposed to work remotely, and we will see how its device hardening can also happen. So let's say there is a organization, there is a account executive who is working on his desktop, and we want him to make sure that he cannot scatter the data. He works on the central server only. So let us first show the agent, whether it is installed or not. So in the system tray, we see this B. One of the device hardening agent is black box. So we are demonstrating that you can use any device hardening agent for hardening the device so that your data scatteredness is minimized. So here we are looking at this particular agent. Now we will see whether the user is administrator or not. It is very important to remove admin privileges from the user, because otherwise user can again, revoke whatever configuration is done by the administrator. So here, if you see, we have gone to control panel. We don't see any administrative tools here. So that is how this particular desktop is hardened, such that the user is not the admin and he does not have access to certain configuration at operating system level. Now let's go to the directory part. So now we see the My Computer part. Here, if you see, you are not seeing C drive, D drive, anything, you are seeing the mapped drives of the central server or a NAS device. So this particular agent has automatically removed the administrative rights from the user. It has also made sure that the user cannot do anything in the change in the configuration, and user cannot access the local drives. Now this user is sitting in the office, desktop user, so he can directly work on the remote drives. So these are all the drives, you don't see anything. Now let's try to save the data on desktop. We will make a notepad file. We'll try to save the data at various places of this on this desktop. Try to save it on desktop. It will not allow to save it on the desktop. Try to save it in documents of this. It will not. Now try to save it on the network drive. So it is able to save the data. So this is what we call by minimizing the scatteredness of the data. So it has completely minimized the data scatteredness. and it makes sure that users are not allowed to save data on their individual. Now, what if it happens with remote users? So now we will connect to a laptop user. That laptop user is remotely connected. So we cannot make him work directly on the central storage because he might have good internet, he might not have good internet, he might be online, he might be offline. So we will see what device hardening is, how device hardening is performed. So let us first verify whether device hardening agent is installed or not. So yeah, we see this B for black box. It is already installed. You can use any other device hardening agent also. Let us verify on this laptop, the control panel is accessible and admin rights are there. They are not. User is not the admin. Now go to the my computer of this particular laptop. So here, if you see, this laptop is not, it is hardened and the user is not able to access the C drive, D drive of the laptop, but there is one secure drive created on this laptop by the device hardening agent. And this device hardening agent can allow the laptop user to work offline, which is mapped with the central storage. So backup will happen on the central storage automatically when the user is online. Now, let's say a user wants to access the central storage and access his own files, or he wants to collaborate with other users. In that case, this device hardening agents can also act as VPN client. So they can right click on this device hardening agent, right click, click VPN, connect VPN. So as soon as the VPN is connected, the drives for which the user is supposed to work on or collaborate with other users on the central storage will be loaded like this. So here, if you see, again, this user is either able to work on an offline drive provided by the agent, hardening agent, or he can work directly on the central storage if he has good internet connectivity. In both the cases, he is not able to scatter the data on his own laptop. Either he is able to save the data on his offline drive, which is backed up with the cloud or the central storage, whatever is the organization's preference. And it is also making sure that all these drives are available if he has good internet connectivity. So with this, I would request Prasanna to launch the poll, how audience reflects on this. Yeah, Rajendra, you can stop sharing your screen.
So about a third of our participants have responded. And it's interesting to see how they are saying that the users, users of the data, the employees, are negligent or ignorant because they are not aware. And that's why they keep data here and there. That's why it's scattered. And then the second reason is more towards work from home situation. And then last we have work culture and the environment. So Vishal said that's how our audience feel the data is scattered. And I really thank you to explain it so easily about the concept of scatteredness and how it can be minimized through the demo. It's like installing or putting up a security person in charge who regulates the employee or the user of that device, that what he has to do and what he has to not. So taking it forward, as the first step, if an organization minimizes data scatteredness, then how can it also then frame up its path to further minimize the loss of data that can happen to the organization?
Yeah, so we have realized that something is very precious. We have realized that why that something is very precious. We have realized that something which is very precious cannot be scattered and it has to be in our vaults. Now we need to understand if that particular precious thing is lost, in what situation it can be lost. So that is very important understanding, that in what situation our data can be lost. So our data can be lost by accidental deletion. I'm working on a project and I suddenly delete anything, shift delete. It could be intentional deletion, somebody, some internal insider, wants to disrupt organization's operations and they just intentionally delete everything. Many outgoing employees do it. It could be virus or ransomware infection. It could be because of hardware crash. It could be because of loss of hardware asset, like my laptop is stolen or my mobile is stolen. Or it could be because of disaster. Something has happened and entire IT infrastructure is destroyed. So these are the data loss situations. So data is very precious and we have to protect it from loss. And we want to protect it from loss. We face these challenges. To protect the data from the loss, the first challenge is recovery of deleted data. How will we recover the deleted data? If the data is intentionally deleted, how we identify who deleted the data, because we would like to take actions against such person. It would be if ransomware has attacked us, we might have antivirus, we might have firewall, but still there is always a 0 day. There is a first day on which the ransomware is launched, and that 0 day, the antivirus and firewall may not be aware about it, and they might take some time to respond and update their own definitions with that new ransomware. Meanwhile, the new ransomware would do maximum damage. So in that situation, if organization's data is lost, how it can recover the data after a ransomware attack? Another challenge is how we can segregate personal and enterprise data. Now in remote work culture, people use their personal laptop, personal desktop for company's work, and they have a lot of personal data. Now company has to make sure that it backs up only enterprise data and it does not back up the personal data, how it can segregate it. And it could be how the recovery of this data, it can be done after disaster or hardware failure. So there are various solutions in this kind of situations. So let us understand those solutions. So there is a technology called active recycle bin. Many hardware devices are equipped with that. So if the device is equipped with that and user deletes the data, even by shift plus delete, whatever data is deleted, it is not permanently deleted from the network, and at the discretion of the admin, he can restore that data. So if user accidentally deletes the data, the first recourse with the organization is to dig into last backup. Now, in most organizations, last backup would be previous day backup or previous week backup or previous fortnight backup or last month backup. So deleted data cannot be recovered from the backup, because when the data was deleted, the state of the data would have been different from the one which was there in the backup, because backup was taken and after that a lot of work has been done on that data. So in that case, we need some real-time service which can capture the data which is deleted by the users. And when the user admits that the data was deleted accidentally, the admin should be able to recover that data. And in order to recover the data, he can maintain the business continuity. Similarly, if the data is intentionally lost, the admin should have capability to find out who has deleted the data. This is most difficult. When we want to find out, let's say a folder is being shared by 15 users and one of the 15 users delete the data. Most of the shared drives do not have such a feature, and we need to have file operations logs as a standard IT infrastructure. So in case the data is deleted from the network, we can easily find out who has deleted the data. Then versioning of the data is another technology which we all should adopt, where we version our backups. We don't take the backup and overwrite last backup. We take the versions of the backup and we keep those versions of the backup isolated. So let's say, for example, today we have taken the backup, then we don't overwrite yesterday's backup or day before yesterday's backup. And when we take the backup today, we isolate yesterday's backup and day before yesterday's backup from network. So in case ransomware strikes, we have last version of the data. And in case ransomware strikes and we have already isolated the last version of the data, ransomware might not be able to reach to that particular data in order to encrypt it. So these are the solutions. One should also think about off-premise backup to take care of or to deal with a disaster kind of situation or hardware destruction kind of situation or loss of hardware kind of situation. So there are many cloud backup solutions available which can take the backup and which can be restored in case hardware fails or in case hardware is stolen or in case something else happens to the data. Similarly, this kind of situation where you want to segregate between personal data and enterprise data, if the users are using personal laptops or desktops, one should think about the agents which can create dual profiles on such computers. And one profile serves as a personal profile, another profile serves as an enterprise profile. In enterprise profile, user is subjected to all organizations policy. He has access to all the organization's data. In personal profile, he does not have all that access. And the backup of enterprise profile is only taken, not the personal. So this kind of technology should be used for, and we call it as dual profile to isolate enterprise data from personal data. And we should always provide for the backup of the laptop, either on the cloud or on our NAS device, so that in case something happens to the laptop, organization does not lose business continuity. So this is about data loss situations, its challenges and solutions. I request Prasanna to run a poll just to know what audience reflects on this particular topic.
So our audience, you would have faced data loss situation. So what they have been. Mr. Shah, is interesting to know about 60% people are saying that it's accidental data deletion. And then some have been unfortunate about having faced a situation of loss of the laptop or hardware crash. Disaster and ransomware are followed by that. So almost 70% of our audience have faced a situation where accidental deletion of data and they would have faced loss from it. And then hardware crash or sometimes even loss of laptop would have also led to data loss. So now, Mr. Shah, you have walked us through various situations where data can be lost, and we have understood situations or solutions to prevent data loss. But with data loss protection objectives, it also includes data protection from leakages or thefts. So how can we prevent, or what solutions are there to protect data from being lost or being stolen? If you could reflect your views on that.
Yeah. So yeah, this is very interesting. We normally protect our very precious thing, from loss. Here we have to protect it from theft also. So let us understand what are the theft situations. So most of the times in SME, data theft happens by insiders. We assume that now there are good solutions for dealing with external threats, the external cybersecurity threats like firewall or antivirus. Such solutions can take or deal with such external threats. So I would focus on data theft situation as insider threat. So first is a data can be exfiltrated on USB port. Data can be leaked on email attachment. Data can be leaked on blind carbon copy, BCC. Let's say I am sending a very confidential report to my boss and I'm sending BCC to Rahul. My boss, when he's reading that email, would not know that this mail was sent as a blind carbon copy to Rahul. So this is very, very easy way to steal the data from the organization, or uploading the confidential data over the internet is also one of the tactics, So USB, email, blind carbon copy, and drives, cloud drives are the avenues of data theft. Now, what are the challenges? So let's say, for example, if I want to just disconnect the USB port so nobody can use USB, we all know that nowadays even keyboard and mouse also work on USB. So we cannot just disconnect those USB ports. Many a times our organization needs digital signatures which also work on USB port. And in order to give them USB digital signatures, we need to make sure that user has access to USB, and then we are worried about data theft on USB. So this is a practical solution. So this is a practical challenge, not the solution. It is also difficulty in enforcing email policies. Organization might be using Gmail and all users are working on Gmail. How can you make sure that you have email policies on your Gmail? Of course, Gmail gives some policies, but user might log into his personal Gmail, then there is no policy. So these are challenges. Difficulty in monitoring the emails. Organization cannot monitor everything. It can control something, but it cannot monitor everything. So this is another challenge, how we can deal with it. We cannot monitor every email outgoing from the organization. So there has to be some control mechanism also. Then variety of business cases requiring access to unrestricted internet. See, there could be a research department in the organization. There could be business development department in the organization who cannot be controlled on internet. We have to give them internet as a resource. And when we give internet as a resource, they can very easily steal the data. They can upload the data on their personal drives, whatever. So these are the challenges. So information technology adoption basically comes with a lot of resources, and those resources can be utilized for betterment of the organization, and those resources can be misused to impact the organizations negatively. So let us understand what could be the solutions. So again, I'm coming to such device hardening solutions. So there are many device hardening solutions which help organizations to have multi-layer policies on the USB port. So let's say there is a 50 people organization or 100 people organization. An organization believes that 70% of its people don't need USB port if their keyboard and mouse works on USB. Then we can have a policy that only keyboard, mouse, kind of non-mass storage devices can be used by the users over USB, but nothing else. Now, let's say organization wants that 10% of its users should be using digital signature or some dongle, licensed dongle of Autodesk or such software which runs on USB. In that case, such device hardening tools can give you a policy where there is only inward only type of data. So he can attach the digital signature, he can read that digital signature or that licensed dongle, but he cannot copy anything outward on that. In case very few people, let's say 2%, 3% of the users, organization want them to even take the data on USB port for whatever business reason, then there can be device hardening tool which monitors that exfiltration of data on USB port, generates a report and reports to a supervisor. So this kind of report can be an evidence if that user has breached any of his employment agreement confidentiality clause. Similarly, there are variety of email distribution servers, which can serve as an interface between your user and your Gmail or Office 365 or any email host systems you are working on or you use. And that particular interface between your email hosting and between your user, that interface will apply email policies. Let's say you want that 50% of your organization's users should not be sending emails out because they want to use the emails only for internal work as per their job profile. Let's say you want that 20% of the users can send emails, but to certain parties only, then such email distribution server can also do that job. Or you want that BCC, this kind of users cannot send, or they can send, but it should be reported. It can also be done. Or you can have attachment policy, or you can have moderation policy, that if this user sends an email, it should be approved by the supervisor and then only it would go. And I would like to apply this policy to my design department, because the design department is generating a lot of intellectual property. Similarly, when we want to give internet access to the user, we have a lot of DLP solutions, which can monitor what user is doing on internet. It can also stop if user is uploading the data. There are certain solutions which can isolate the data when user opts for full internet. So let's say user is given internet access as per organization policy. Now user wants to go to a website for his research purpose or for business development purpose, which is not allowed by the organization. Now he cannot go every now and then to the IT team and ask that, I need this site, that site. So there can be on-demand internet. When he goes on demand internet, the isolation of the data happens, so he cannot pick up anything and upload. So these are all solutions available, and they can be very well achieved by device hardening agents and who have DLP inbuilt also. So these are the solutions for data theft situations. These are the challenges we have discussed, and certain solutions also we have discussed. So you can go to video section of Sinnersoft, in which all these points are very well explained in very layman terms. I would request Prasanna to launch the poll. We are, ending this particular session with the agenda, and then over to you, Rahul.
Right. So for our audiences, what have been the data loss situations? Right now, a quarter of our audience has responded, and more than 50% are saying it's email attachment, or it's almost going on equal. But email attachment as a wrong email attachment, or through an email, the data leakages has happened, followed by USB port, and then online storage drives and blind carbon copy. Yep. So as you also gave the example of email attachment, our audience also feels that they have faced a situation wherein their confidential data or their important data had been leaked out inadvertently or by some miscreants within the organization through emails. So with this session, I really like to thank you, Mr. Shah, for this great explanation on why data has become digital gold, and the demonstrations you have given for the solutions to prevent data loss and to protect the data as well, and the best practices that the organizations can follow to keep their data safe. So just to summarize for our audience, we have learned that the most important thing in our part for data protection is to minimize data scatteredness. And through demos, we have learned that how we can minimize data scatteredness. And then we have learned about solutions, and we have learned about the practices that we need to follow to protect the data from any theft or leakages. So I hope today's session would have been helpful for our audience to learn and to be aware of keeping their digital gold, that is their data, safe and secure. I would like to open the forum now for questions or queries from our audiences. So till now we have received 2. We have about 5-10 minutes, so we can go through some of the questions. And I would request our audience to keep posting if they have any doubt.
Yeah.
So,
So,
sir,
Rahul, shall I take the first question?
yes, Muzammal Ali has asked, can you name some email policy which can be implemented by the SMBs?
Yeah, very good question. Email is always a gray area. So, before you want to decide on any policy about emails in your SMB, you need to understand the job profile of every user. I'll give you some example. Let's say there are some users who check their emails while they are on in office, and they are communicating with internal users only, with internal users only. In that case, you can have a policy that those users cannot send emails outside of your domain. So let's say if you can identify that let's say 50% of an SMB are that kind of user, you don't really have to monitor them. So the idea for an SMB email policy formation is maximum control, minimum monitoring. You don't have time to monitor people. So you would like to exercise maximum control so you don't have to monitor. So let's say, for example, 50% of the people you identify, they can send emails only inside the organization. Then you are not worried about data leakage on emails. Now, let's say out of other remaining 50%, if you think that, 10% of the people like purchase, procurement should be able to send emails to specific parties only. You might have your own directory of 500 emails or 100 emails or whatever. I'm talking about SMB. Then you can define such list in your email distribution server so that only those people can send emails to them only, nobody else. So you don't have to really monitor them. Now let's say some a part of your users for which you are not sure they should be able to send emails anywhere, okay, because they are business development or something like that, no problem. Then you set up your email distribution server such that whenever they are sending an email, the copy is received by the supervisor, or there is a report which is normally made by most of the email distribution servers, and that is sent every day to the supervisor. The supervisor would know if that user is not doing anything wrong. Along with that, if you can identify the users in your organization who you think that can send emails only if it is approved by the supervisor, then you can very well configure your email distribution system such that they can send emails, supervisor would approve or disapprove, and if it is approved, then only it will go to the recipient. That is how you can exercise a maximum control so that you have to have minimum monitoring. So this is my answer to this email policy. Yeah, Rahul.
That's great, sir. Maximize control with minimum monitoring, which is equivalent to minimum policing as well. So we have another question being asked by Vikramjit Singh. Would Active Directory and file server be feasible for companies of employee strengths of, I guess he means 20 to 30. So for a small SMEs, would deploying Active Directory and file server be feasible for a company with a small strength?
See, I would not recommend such a setup, because see, when you want to implement Active Directory and file server, you will be dealing with two hardware. One, you will make one Active Directory domain controller. Another, you will have a file server. You should not keep both combined, because if one goes down, your entire operations would be at halt. So let's say you will have primary domain controller, then you will have a file server. For 20-30 users, it is too much. Number one, because you are going to deal with two hardware. Two, you are going to deal with two server software, which are not very cheap. Then you will be required to take client access licenses. And in order to configure the Active Directory services, you will require an expert person to do it for you. I don't, just for the purpose of minimizing data scatteredness, protecting data from loss and leakage, you don't need all this. This kind of products are very economical and cost effective when the scale of usage is high. For 20-30 users, you will be spending at least 15 to 20,000 rupees per user on setting up this kind of setting. So instead, you go for device hardening solutions. And these device hardening solutions are not very, very expensive. And these device hardening solutions do have a cloud interface on which you can do configuration, and that can be imposed on your users, and they can give you the same result. Another reason why I don't recommend Active Directory and file server for a small organization is they are loaded with too many features. These systems are designed for very high scale usage of IT. So it has hundreds of features inside. Most of the features they have, you would not be utilizing as an SMB, but still you will be paying for that. So instead, you should pay for what you need, and I would say that Active Directory and file server would not be so feasible for employee strength of 2030 if I have to take a decision on return on investment. Instead, you can achieve the same objective with a very cost effective device hardening solutions.
Okay. I guess Vikramjit Singh would find it very helpful coming from a person who is called the go-to guy for MSMEs. So rightly, I also relate to this query from Ashish Kumbat. He says that we have a centralized location for all the accounting data. Sometimes we have to give access to the external entities like auditing purpose. How should we ensure that data which is being shared is secure and safe and is not being shared other than the intended person?
Right. So it is not that difficult also. So I would explain it that way, that let's say you have a centralized location for all your accounting data. So now your accounting data would be in two different categories. One is files, file data, like your Excel, your Word files, and your application. You might be using an accounting application or ERP application. So there are two things which are generating your accounting data. One is your ERP, in which users enter the data, vouchers, bills, whatever, and that data is being exported for meaningful MIS reports and all that. So your accounting data is in two parts. One is the data which is there in your ERP application, and the other one is the files. Now, how do you protect it when you have to give access to external agencies like your auditors or advisors, or sometimes you have to give access to your remote work users also? So here, there are a lot of technologies available, and we call those technologies as remote access technologies. So in that, what happens, you can implement one of those technologies. We call it as access application anywhere kind of technology, AAA applications. In that, you can have one browser, in which the user can log in, they can access it, but they cannot copy paste anything. They cannot copy paste anything. They can only access it. And we would like to show this. This is a very good question, and I would like to show how it works. So Rajendra, can we show a browser login to Tally? Let's assume that you have a Tally. It could be SAP, it could be anything. So I will show you how it works, and then it's absolutely safe. So first of all, this works only on VPN. So whatever is your central location, you should allow your external people to access your central location over VPN only. That central location could be in data center, it could be on your premise. So now let's say, for example, we want to see this. So it would be, let's say, URL, which is hosted on your premise or on your or on your data center. Let's say user is given, your external agency is given username and password. This is just a browser, okay? Log on to that. So when your external agency is connecting to VPN, they log on to the browser, then they will have, let's say, Tally kind of, or any other ERP you use. So let's say they click on Tally. This is accessed in browser. Okay, now just make it full screen so we can see it in a better visibility. So here this Tally is accessible. Now this particular external agency, which is either entering the data, he can only enter the data using this application, but he cannot copy paste anything. He cannot copy paste anything. So this is how you can very secured manner, you can, give access to your remote users as well as to the external agencies, and you can make sure that your security is not compromised. Thank you, Rajendra. Yeah, over to you, Rahul.
Oh, one another question has come up. It's by Sachin. how we ensure that data backups are being done promptly. As we have offices in different locations across India, we very much face issues of backup missing. This can be due to network connectivity or proper issues. I guess this is real-time backup between two remote locations, right, sir? So, your thoughts into this?
Yeah, so Sachin, it is not the problem which you are facing alone. It is faced by most of the organizations, especially when they have distributed IT usage. So I would recommend that again, there are good device hardening agents which can take the data backup every 1 hour or 2 hours from the devices, from the server, and they post it on the cloud. In case you don't want to post them on the cloud, you can have sufficient bandwidth on premise. The key is in the reports and controls, so let's say you have an agent which is taking the backup, and that backup is going to the cloud or to your premise, whatever, and then you should have complete visibility. What I understand from your question is that people are under impression that backup is happening. But when data is lost and when backup is required to be restored, one realizes that backup was missing, and you cannot monitor it all the time, whether this backup happened or not, that backup happened or not. There are thousands and millions of files. So what I suggest is that you should have a very simple solution. You can have your own infrastructure. It depends on your IT usage. Infrastructure on a data center with very good bandwidth. In case you have a smaller IT setup and you don't want to invest in data center or IT infrastructure, you can take a good cloud backup solution. You can take a good cloud backup solution. You can select a good cloud backup agent. The agent we saw in Blackbox was also a cloud backup agent. And that agent should be throwing the backup every hour from that particular device. So at the most, you would lose last 1 hour data, which is affordable mostly. And after that, most importantly, you should have a report. You should have complete visibility, real-time level. Yeah, Rajendra, can we show the backup dashboard? So such agents, when they take the backup, they submit a report also. So now let's say, for example, we have this kind of backup report. I'm showing you a backup report of our Synersoft data. So all our laptops, desktops, remote users, desktops, our branch offices, desktops, servers are loaded with that client agent. We have our infrastructure on cloud, and see, this is how we are getting the things. Like 8 backup were successful. There were 2 errors, and we can see the report also. Red is the error. So Ravindra Kumar's desktop had an error. Yeah, can you click? Yeah, you clicked on that. So we can see that there are 2 files changed. Just go to version 2, DCDR version 2. So this is how we can see this report, and you can very well monitor these reports. It would take just 5 minutes to monitor this report, and then you can focus, okay, Ravindra Kumar's problem is there could be backup missing, and then you can take corrective action so that you don't have unpleasant surprise when you want to restore your backup and you find that they were not there. You would know as soon as they were not there. Go to this backup part also. If it is about your servers, you should have this kind of visibility. These are all servers. So just click on some demo system or something, full ahead HDD view report. Then you see that, yeah, go to some other report, Rajendra, which has some report. Second page. Yeah, Synersoft full backup on external HDD or something, So we have a external HDD on which full backup is taken, and that HDD is placed inside the bank locker. So such errors. So now you have an error. When you have an error, you have option to take care of that error. So it doesn't have a unpleasant surprise. Can you show some other backup, Rajendra? So here total 1.86 GB of data. So there were some errors. So you would know there were 1080 files were backed up. Yeah, thank you, Rajendra. So this would be my answer to your question, Sachin.
Great. Sir, now we have one interesting question which I too had in mind. It's asked by Arul Jude. If we have multiple OS systems like Windows, Mac, and probably Linux too, can we have one solution that does data backup and implements policies all across?
See, when you have multiple OS systems, till date, there is no uniform solution. I have observed that it works on all three OSs like Linux, Mac, especially for the policy implementation. For backup, yes, you have most of the cloud backup agents which work on Windows and Mac. Few of them work on Linux. But yes, our industry has not matured itself to take care of this kind of all the operating systems for backup and policy implementation for a very simple reason. See, there is an enormous discrepancy, or I would say enormous differential in the usage of the operating system. 95% of the users' computer systems are Windows, and 5% is where Mac and Linux are fighting for. So most of the solutions provider in policy implementation or in backup solution, they invest their R&D efforts only for Windows because they are covering larger market. And because there are smaller markets like Mac and Linux, Mac has itself got its own backup systems. Mac does not really believe in policies. It is very difficult to configure Mac at the system level because of its own security policies, because of its own privacy policies. So yes, we have to live with this truth that till date we don't have a uniform solution for all the operating systems. But yes, most of us use Windows, so we have matured solutions for Windows.
Thank you, sir. I guess we don't have any further questions from our audience. And thank you for giving your time and taking us through this impressive session. I guess it would be very helpful for our audience too. And we look forward to more such sessions. And our audience, we hope that it is helpful to you. And you are now more aware and you are more abreast with the technologies that are there to safeguard your data and also to protect it from incidental like data theft or losses.
Yeah, and thank you very much, Rahul and entire Smart State India team for making this webinar possible and giving us an opportunity to address to such a platform where we could convey our thoughts and help more and more people.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the kind words.
Thank
and
you.
I will thank the audience again. Thank you for coming in and giving us your precious time. Hope this session is helpful to you.
Yeah, and you can fill up the survey form after this session so we would know how to make it better.